without a clicker, that's there.
Okay, great, thank you. 7:30 Monday night. Good evening, everyone. How's it going? My name's Jackson Hideki. I'm the president of the board of directors of the Hamilton Naturalist Club, and I'm kind of getting tired of saying Happy New Year to people, but because this is our first meeting, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. It is the start of perhaps resolutions you may have, but for a lot of birders, it's the start of your new bird list for 2026. I think I'm up to 8 species already, which I'm excited for. But welcome to the first monthly meeting of the Hamilton Naturalist Club. Is this anyone's first time out at one of these meetings? Show of hands. Terry, put your hand down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome. Awesome. Yes, thank you. We're excited you're here. These nights are pretty casual for the first half an hour or so. It's just kind of a mingling, hanging out, enjoying some snacks provided by any host of our refreshment committee. So Dina, Ellen, and Anne will typically be here providing something. So did anyone have a tasty treat tonight? Let's give a round of applause to the lovely food provided. Thank you so much. The first half an hour is typically us just getting a chance to hang out, mingle, catch up with some friends. We start at 7:30 and we end around 9, and it depends on the speaker. Sometimes it ends a bit sooner, sometimes it ends a little bit later. I'm not sure how long our speaker will be going for tonight, but that will remain to be seen. Typically, there is Q&A to follow. Some speakers will take questions during the presentation, but we always encourage people to participate. And I'm actually going to start with that right now. I'm wondering if anyone has observed anything exciting in nature this year so far, since January 1st. Something that's exciting to you. What do you got?
An opossum in our front yard.
An opossum in your front yard.
This morning.
Today. Hanging out or walking through?
Well, it was garbage day, so I was looking for food.
An opossum. Great. Yeah.
A snowy owl down near Fruitland Road.
Oh. Some birders are going to be going out tomorrow morning. A couple days ago. So Fruitland Road?
Yeah, but it usually hangs out in our area for the winter.
Okay. Yeah.
Fox is barking 2 nights in a row.
Really? Yeah. Barking foxes.
Well, they're actually red foxes.
Barking red foxes. Thank you. This is a Naturalist Club meeting. Thank you. That's great. Any cool sightings? Yeah.
I don't think this is particularly cool. I have a herd of 7 that cross my yard regularly.
A herd of 7 deer cross your yard regularly. That's
Does and juveniles.
That's great.
Not that well, yes, I grow enough to feed them all.
To center you out, Charlie, you were in Costa Rica. What was your cool sighting? Mangrove cuckoo. You couldn't smuggle it back for us. It's probably wise. That's great. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Very interesting. In our neighborhood, we have several squirrels that have no tails.
Several.
Yes. So we're beginning to think it's like a genetic thing or what.
So someone said what'd you say?
Slow dog.
A slow dog or a fast dog.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like that was the case. It looks like they were born that way.
Interesting. What neighborhood is that?
On Dillwood Avenue by McMaster.
Okay, so if anyone here lives around Dalewood Avenue, look out for a bunch of tailless squirrels. Interesting. Because, yeah, you're right. It could be a genetic trait. That's very interesting. Well, great. Any last sightings? I found a dead leopard frog frozen into Coots Paradise on a walk there recently. That was interesting. Well, keep those sightings in mind. Keep nature top of mind, front and center for you. You're here. You probably already do. If you do see anything contribute to iNaturalist, put any of your pictures there so that the broader community can also observe your sightings. Because it's great to create community, and that's what we're trying to do here with the HNC. And this is something that is going to be growing over the next little while, is trying to grow our sense of community. So the board of directors has contracted Civic Plan to take on our very first ever strategic plan. We've never done this with the Naturalist Club before, and we're excited to start it. And one of the things we're working on right now is going to be a member survey. And we're hoping that the folks in the room and those joining us at home, by the way, we stream these meetings thanks to Rob Porter. So we value and will very much listen to your input as it pertains to the direction of the Hamilton Naturalist Club over the next couple of years. We want to know what's important to members. And the way this will work best is if we get people contributing to it. So you're going to hear from us over the next couple of months. In fact, next month, we hope to bring Civic Plan here, and they're going to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about who they are and how they're going to take this process on. So you'll hear this from us several times. We want you to tell us what you think of the Naturalist Club and where you would like to see us go. The board, staff, volunteers will take that direction and we'll run with it. So something to keep in mind, because we have been around since 1919 and we hope to be around for another 106 years, 107 years. And that comes by way of people contributing. And again, you're all here now, so this is already a great start. But we'd love to see our member base grow. We'd love to see people coming out to our walks, leading walks, being the speaker on stage, because a lot of it just comes from ideas, and it comes from people wanting to do things. Our new program director, is it program or events? Celine, what is your... our field events coordinator, Celine. Thank you for it. It's on the screen. Has had someone from Point Pelee reach out to the Naturalist Club to offer a very discounted rate at renting a yurt for several days, or a small cabin. We will only be able to make this work if there are people interested in going. And right now you're kind of getting, this is the very first anyone's hearing about this. We don't know what the uptick would be in people wanting to go to Pelee. So I encourage you to email Celine, fieldevents@hamiltonnature.org, to express your interest, because we need to let them know very soon how many of these cabins we're interested in. And then there's a cutoff. So don't think about it for too long. Let Celine know right away, because this would be a fun trip. Is it Peter Morley? No? Who? Frank Morley, thank you, used to run these for several years. And it's dissipated, and it kind of ended around COVID times, but they're looking to us to get it started again. So this would be something fun for you to take part in. And that's getting excited for May. Yeah?
They actually stopped giving it to us, because Frank used to have a little in there, and then they switched the process of how they offered the cabins out, and now this is the first I've heard of it coming back.
So what I'm hearing, Terry, is you guys partied too hard. They didn't want the Naturalist Club coming to, but good to know.
Because Frank was always the person to know.
Yeah.
Put a bid in for everybody, and then they cut it off. They said, no, you gotta go through the reservation.
Okay. So I guess they've gone back to their ways. So this is an opportunity, and you're hearing about it here first. So reach out to Celine if you're interested. I think there are several cabins available, but we won't know how many to fill unless we know how many people are interested. So as you know, and we've been flipping through these while you were waiting for this night to start, these are all available online, but we do like people to know that we have a lot of events that we hope you come out to. And this is quite a popular one, an evening Eastern Screech Owl outing held by Sheldon McGregor. There is a winter tree ID event happening on January 24th with Nadia Cavillon from the Royal Botanical Gardens, and Charlie thought he was part of this too, and he is?
He's and friends.
You're the and friends. So a nice slow-paced walk through the woods at the RBG Arboretum to look at and identify winter trees, which is great. A winter walk at the Sheila Dunduli Nature Sanctuary on the 31st. So that will be great. RSVP through Jen so that we know who's coming. And if you can't read that hyperlink, it's just land@hamiltonnature.org. But again, a complete listing of these is on our website. But we really do encourage people to get out into nature in the wintertime, especially if you're dealing with SAD. It's a good way to kind of break that is just by getting outside when you can, even if it is a blustery day. CD Saturday is coming up on February 7th between 10 and 3 a.m. at the Hamilton Central Library. So this is another annual exciting event that we'll be taking part in, and we hope to see you there. Next week, Rob Porter, the Bird Study Group Director, is going to be the special guest talking about a recent trip to Alberta and talking about the various songs that he encountered at that. So that'll be happening on January 19th, right back here, starting at 7:30. And next month, Geology of the Niagara Escarpment. So there were a few jokes happening out in the foyer earlier about how naturalists don't tend to dive too deeply into rocks, but they are very much a part of nature, and especially living around the Niagara Escarpment. So I'm looking forward to Anne being our special guest next month, right back here at 7:30 p.m. To learn all about the Niagara Escarpment. So thank you, Natalie, for setting that up. And with that, I will introduce tonight's speaker, who doesn't need much of an introduction if you've been part of the Naturalist Club for any matter of years. When I started on the board, Bruce was the Bird Study Group Director. And when he stepped away from that role, I filled his shoes, and they were big shoes to fill. In fact, I still haven't quite filled them out. And I had to leave that role to become vice and then president. But Bruce being on the board was one of the main reasons why I wanted to join the board. And being at the Bird Study Group meetings was something that really allowed me to find community in the nature world in Hamilton. Bruce and I went for a nice walk on Saturday at Grimsby Wetlands. And then I went to 50 Point to do some birding. I didn't see Bruce for a couple hours, and then a dead body was found at 50 Point Sunday morning. I don't know where Bruce was in that window. So Bruce Mackenzie has lived in Hamilton with his wife Lori since 1976, and they brought up their two children, Stuart and Melanie, in Hamilton's nature. They have been members of the club since 1976, and he's past president and longtime serving board member with the HNC. Bruce spent his career with the Hamilton Conservation Authority, managing conservation areas, and I thought including 50 Point.
25 years.
So he knows the spots. I'm really joking, actually. If anyone's listening online, I'm kidding. He frequently leads nature hikes and contributes articles to the Wood Duck and other publications on a variety of natural history subjects. I'm ecstatic to have Bruce Mackenzie here. Let's give a round of applause to Bruce.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for that kind introduction, Jackson. And I'm wondering why I haven't spoken here to the club for a long time, with a microphone at least. Thanks very much for coming out tonight. I hope to share a story with you that Lori and I have been living through for 24 years now. And it's been a project that has taken great leaps and with few downfalls, but there's been a number of just trip and falls, thanks to vines, weak ice, and things like that. Tonight, before I start, I'd like to thank a few people, because without these people and organizations, the Grimsby Wetlands would not exist as it does today. And it's a little complicated story, so the first thing I'd like to do is ask, is there anybody in the audience that have read one or some of my articles about the Grimsby Wetlands in the Wood Duck or other publications? Okay, so there are some that this is going to be new to you. So I'm going to try to meet the middle of the background that's in the room. And Natalie, thank you very much for asking me tonight asking me to speak tonight and give a review of the Grimsby Wetlands. As you can see, it's a project of the Hamilton Naturalist Club. And this project started in 2001. Sometimes I'm tempted to say 2021 because I don't want to go back that far. And normally I save a lot of thank yous to the end of my talk, but these people and groups are very important, so I'm going to mention them out at the beginning so that you can see the complexity of the network that's been involved in allowing us to enjoy the Grimsby Wetlands today. So first of all is Lois Evans, a longtime member of the Hamilton Naturalist Club, a world traveler. And in 2017, when we first started physically working on the property, Lois, with what I call blind faith, she knew me, she made a large donation to the Grimsby Wetlands. And that allowed us to get us started in a big way. And without that donation, we would have just, I don't know, we might have fizzled away. Next, the Ed Smee Fund of the Hamilton Conserver Society, the Mary McCollum Fund of the Hamilton Naturalist Club, Sandy Boswell and family, Barry Cherrier, Winona Men's Club, the Grimsby 40 Fund, Sharon Porter, Frank and Sandra Horvath, Bruce and Marion Harsnitz, Debbie Lindeman, Dennis Price, Judith Pelly, Grimsby Lions Club, Rotary Club of Grimsby, with sponsors such as Original Greenscapes, Birds Canada, Vinemount Quarry, Drone and Drone's Eye View Photography. So, I think I've got there we go. So where is the Grimsby Wetlands? It's on the south shore of Lake Ontario, almost direct neighbors with the 50 Point Conservation Area, but between the Grimsby Wetlands and what I call on the slides D&D, Department of National Defense. That's the property owner, the Winona Rifle Range that separates the Grimsby Wetlands from the 50 Point Conservation Area. And to the east of the Grimsby Wetlands, you'll see the Radio Tower lands, owned and operated by Rogers Radio. And they're good neighbors. So the Grimsby Wetlands used to be known as, and you'll still see it on Google Maps and other forms of cartography, as the Big R sewage lagoons. I remember speaking to Bill Lamont, the editor of the Wood Duck, early in this process. And I said, Bill, I'm having a little trouble coming up with a name because the sewage lagoon part doesn't have a lot of marketing capabilities. So he says, what's wrong with Grimsby Wetlands? I said, perfect, it's only 2 words. So that's how the Grimsby Wetlands got to be. We had to change the image. Most people in Grimsby and Winona didn't even know where the property was, let alone that it was a cesspool for 40 years. And in 2000, the region of Niagara, the operator of the sewage lagoon property, started to decommission the sewage lagoons. Now, some of you might be familiar with the fact that sewage lagoons can be wonderful for birding. Why? Because the ponds are full of nutrients, which means insects like them, and birds come along and like them. And I'm told by Bob Curry that the first time he noticed the lagoons, he was driving by on Winston Road and saw purple martins flying around. And Bob, being intuitive as he is, says, purple martins, there's got to be something there other than just fields. So he might have been the first official person to trespass on the property. Anyways, he discovered these luxuriant ponds that was very attractive to birds And since the early 1960s, if you go back through issues of the Wood Duck in noteworthy bird records, you will find records of birds from the Grimsby Big R sewage lagoons. So there was already a written record of the importance of the lagoons to birds. A couple of reasons for that. One, sewage lagoons produce insects, which attract birds. But we're on the south shore of Lake Ontario, in the biggest green area on the south shore of Lake Ontario in Ontario. Between 50 Point, the Rifle Range, the Grimsby Wetlands, and the Radio Tower lands, it's almost 400 acres. So that is a big chunk of green space on the south shore of Lake Ontario. Very attractive to wildlife. And the Grimsby Wetlands just happens to be almost in the center of this property. So when we found out that the lagoons were being decommissioned, and when you think about what they did at Port Rowan sewage lagoons and other lagoons through North America, former sewage lagoons, many of these have been turned around into natural areas, or what they call constructed wetlands. And so I invited a few folks from the Naturalist Club. Jim Stollard was president of the club, Bob Curry, Barry Cherrier, he was another trespasser, and Kevin McLaughlin, to form a small committee. And we put together a proposal that we'll see in a second. And that proposal was delivered to the region of Niagara and to the Department of National Defense, asking them to leave the water bodies as is for natural processes, to allow for natural processes to rehabilitate the ponds. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So the important point here is that in 2001 is when we first knocked on a door. There was a very hollow sound announcing to the world that the Hamilton Naturalist Club was interested in this property. Now here's a photograph of the area from the 1960s. Notice there's only one water body on this photograph, and that's labeled as number 1. That is what we call today Watcher's Pond at the Grimsby Wetlands. Where 50 Creek is, that's in the middle of the 50 Point Conservation Area. There's no big pond, there's no marina. And where the bigger farm is, today that's a 9-acre pond. And in 1960, as you can see from the rows, this was still an active fruit farming area. That's not the case today.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Interrupt. Just that woodlot that's between Department D&D and Kelson Avenue, is that still sort of untouched in the last 60 years? Like the sort of...
Yep.
That's the same one that's still there now?
Yes, and thanks very much for that question. The woodlot in the northwest corner of the D&D property, right underneath the capital E, is one of the largest woodlots, if not the largest woodlot in Grimsby on the Lake Ontario plain. And it's quite interesting, I'm told, because it's fenced with 8 feet fence and guards. But it has wildflowers in it. It has a neat mixture of trees in it. I looked through the fence. So it's been, it's had a sheltered life, that woodlot. Very interesting botanically. So today, this is a photograph of the Grimsby Wetlands, and it's 29 acres in total, the parcel, but it has 2 property owners. The north one, as I mentioned earlier, the D&D pond, is 9 acres in size, where the region shows, that's Watchers Pond. It's 6 acres in size. And then below the region's pond, you'll see 4 dark spots. Those are water bodies as well, and they came into existence through 5 years of negotiation and a little luck. So there's 1, 2, 3, hard to see, 4. And so we have 6 water bodies on the property. They're all different in size and depth and shape. And because we had a hand in the design of the lower 4, we wanted to have variety so that animals and plants and we would have choice. And since 2017, the Hamilton Naturalist Club has had permission to work on the property that belongs to the region of Niagara, 20 acres in size. And there are the 5 water bodies that we are involved with. The D&D pond, the 9-acre pond north of Watchers Pond, we're not involved with that, but the birds are, because there's 9 acres of shallow water. So overall, we got about 14 acres of water and various shorelines around them. And in 2001, 2002, we started the hard work. And that's because it was political, administrative, and bureaucratic. On the left is a copy of our original proposal that went into the region in the Department of National Defense. And we got very fortunate at that time. The local newspaper editor thought a pile of poo would be an interesting article. And a local politician who we'll talk about later on, who I knew, he thought the project had a life to it. It just needed a kickstart. So we got a lot of local publicity. And that, in the background behind me on the left, is the woodlot that Matt spoke about a second ago. And this hill behind me in this photograph is just a pile of sludge. It's not there, and that's how we found the property when we first went on. The bulldozers were already there. And the ambition of the engineers was to level this property and remove any memory of a sewage lagoon remaining. And our battle was uphill because contracts had already been let to eliminate the memory. So I'm going to go very quickly from 2001 till 2016. In 2005, we had a negotiated settlement between the naturalists, between the community. Nothing is in writing. But there's 20 acres of playground. So 2005, there's an agreement to leave the 6-acre pond as is, to leave the 9-acre pond in the background at the top of this photograph as is. Lake Ontario is in the back, very top of the photograph. And we got to design these other 4 ponds. And that was by accident. The military said to the region had leased that 9 acres for a lagoon from the military. And the military said, there's toxins in that pond. You've got to remove all the sludge from that pond. So the region moved 9 acres of mud a foot deep out of that pond, waiting for it to be shipped to some willing community like Sarnia. Maybe even Michigan or Buffalo, I don't know how you get on that great list of, oh, send me your poo. So that was fine, and they'd stockpiled all that mud up at the front, and then the Ministry of Environment of Ontario changed the rules. They said, you can't move that poo. You got to move it, leave it on the site. So the engineers, the consultant called us and said, we have to move this pile of sludge, which is basically clay. How would you like it moved? Because we don't care. We're getting paid to move it, whether it's a flat pile or it has contours. So we said, well, we'll get back to you in a few days. We'll give you a contour map. Well, we wrote it up in about 30 minutes. Waited 2 days, made it look like we thought. And 4 ponds were created, free. But the consultant got paid, no matter what, or the engineers did. So at about the same time, the town of Grimsby was developing a plan for the waterfront trail. You know, you've got to have a waterfront trail. So we got involved with the town. We said, we got this neat property that you could take your waterfront trail into. What property? Well, we told them about the Big R sewage lagoon and how it was no longer a lagoon. Oh. So the first phase of the waterfront trail went into the sewage lagoons property and terminated at a viewing tower, which is there today. We'll see another photograph of it. And that was done with a grant from the region to the town. So the town gets a nice ribbon, the region gets a nice ribbon, and we got to design the trail and the tower. They altered it a little bit, but that's okay. So here's a photograph of, at the same time, looking to the south though, and so you can see the tower right in the middle with the 3 other wetlands. Number 1 is what's known as Stollard's Pond. Gene and Jim Stollard, long time members of the club, both past presidents. Gene coordinated the publication and writing of the 100th anniversary book for this club. And this pond is in recognition of their work for the club. Now, when we went to the region and the Department of National Defense, we had to have a program to give to them to say, this is what we can do for you. We didn't ask them to do something for us other than give sort of 20 acres, 29 acres of real estate to the community. So placing structure on the ground, and I'll talk more about that. Interpretive signage, floating islands, nest boxes, turtle nest sites, control of invasive species, native tree and shrub planting, viewing platforms, public art. And we had a lot of fun with this. The turtles, the birds, the mammals, the insects were already there. The number of species, though, has increased. And we got our first award in 2003. I hadn't put a shovel in the ground. And that was really important. And I'd like to thank Bob Curry for suggesting to the Ontario field ornithologists that a certificate of appreciation be made to me, or to the committee, for our work in trying to get the Grimsby Wetlands set aside. We didn't even call it the Grimsby Wetlands yet. And that said to us, wow, somebody else thinks this is a good idea, and we haven't really done anything yet except get on the telephone waiting for the busy signal. And so to complete that award story in 2023, did I do something?
Did you? Oh, is that quick? Yeah.
Oh, I got pictures. Where is theirs?
Second here. Give that a reboot.
Folks,
It'll take a second or so.
tap.
No.
Folks, in case you don't know, this is Rob Porter.
There we go.
He's the director for the bird studies.
We're good now.
Yeah. So our awards, they've been at the provincial level, the municipal level, and at the federal level. And because in 2023, the club received a Brownie Award from the Canadian Brownfield Network, which is an association of companies, agencies, government ministries who look at the world from a brownfield perspective, turning polluted lands into usable lands. And the Hamilton Naturalist Club was the first group ever, volunteer group, to apply for such an award. And Lori and I had the honor of going to Toronto and receiving this reward on behalf of the Hamilton Naturalist Club. And I'm going to do something I'll pay for later. But Lori, could you stand up so everybody could see you? That's Lori. I didn't include her in that first list of people who were to be thanked, but Lori has been the chief and support and the strong back in this work for a long time. Oh, by the way, she's also the editor. Any mistakes tonight are mine. So part of our list of things that we did in our proposal to the region and to the D&D was interpretive work. And we have a number of signs, and we continue to add to interpretive signage on the property. When we create these signs, one of the ways we come to the design is we want that 8-year-old child to say to the parent, "What's that?" And then for the parent to be able to say, "Oh, that's this." And we want to involve the children, we want to involve the community. So here's the artwork that has been provided to us by children, and we've turned that artwork around into metal signs, and they've gone up on one of our wooden fences that was part of the original design of the trail, so there would be a platform to put up interpretive signage. And one of my favorite ones is of the Big R farm family, the Big R family, through time. Started farming on that property at 1798, and the family stayed on that farm until 1960. A long time. Originally 358 acres. It was a gift for to a young man for marrying Mr. Pettit's daughter. Not a bad gift. And it's not just about birds. There's many forms of wildlife, and as we find that as the property matures, as nature comes back to it, the diversity of insects, plants, mammals, the whole possibilities, that list of species grows. And as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of people involved. The Lions Club, in this photograph, the Mayor of Grimsby, a past regional councillor. We've had touch a lot of people along this way, so that no politician got their nose out of joint. We've disturbed a few, but they don't last forever. And then there's been community support. This is a group of Boy Scouts, and they were very important in clearing out buckthorn that had been cut from the wood lot. I call it a wood lot. It's relatively small. That's on the property. And to accommodate the people, we've built decks, placed benches on the property. And to accommodate wildlife, our first job was bluebird houses, which turned out to be quite suitable for tree swallows because there's very few bluebirds on the north side of the QEW in that part of Ontario. And so when do we do this? On cold winter days. Because we want to get on the water, and we want to put in nesting tubes for mallards, floating platforms for the turtles, and goose nesting structures. We have found You build it, they will come. I mentioned the word structure. When we inherited the property, we were given the gift of working on it. There was a patch of trees in the middle of it, 10, 15 acres of mud with an attempt of seeding on it to say that we re-landscaped it or we naturalized it. And there wasn't a log on the property, there wasn't a rock, there wasn't a hole other than the water bodies. There was no diversity of landscape. There was no place for a toad to find a place out of the sun or to rest for the night or to come out from under in the night. So we've put a lot of logs in there, put a lot of rock in of different types, and we've built structures so that wildlife can get a start until nature provides them with the kind of structures that they would find in a natural wetland field environment. And we have found that some have been, how would I say this, very, what do you call a person who rents an Airbnb? A guest? Well, they're looking for quarters. They're looking for places that they can call home. You put it up and you put up a mallard nesting tube. Never done that before. And then a pair of mallards come along and says, well, you got this right. And there she is. 30 days in there, out of the sun, out of the rain, and away from the minks and the raccoons, because this thing's sitting on a steel post 3 feet high, sticking up out of the water. Even the squirrels can't get at it. But ravens and robins sometimes use it as well when the ducks are finished. Not ravens, grackles. When we put in gravel, we wanted to create things that might imitate. We are the great imitators. An old beach. So this is our Kildare nesting site on the shore of Stollard's Pond when Stollard's Pond is at maximum level. Normally you can't see the Kildare nesting site from Stollard's Pond, but here the two are mingled. And wood ducks, the adopted logo of the Hamilton Naturalist Club, is a common nesting bird now with us at the Grimsby Wetlands. And why? Well, there's a few old trees around with hollows in them, and we've built wood duck boxes and put them out in the water. If you put them on trees on land, you have squirrel houses. And to accommodate the geese originally, I had access to a few old boats, which float when they're upside down. Stuff them full of flotation, wrap them with a snow fence, and you have a maintenance headache forever. So here you can see the chains and the concrete blocks for anchors. And the next thing you do is you stick cattails in the snow fence. On paper, it's a great idea. Cattails rot. But you get one season out of them, and there's a goose on the old boat. You can see the boat still underneath the cattails. And again, you can't leave, you're finished putting the cattails in, or you think you're finished, and the goose is on it. So the design works. Why? Because there's no other choice that they had. She wanted to lay eggs, and the first thing that floats got them. And you can see me on the left out I'm using the kayak so that if I get stuck in the mud walking, I can brace myself. Don't walk in those ponds. They like to eat feet and legs because of the mud in the bottom. And the goose is quite, she was okay with me. Tree swallows, you put a hole in something and a tree swallow will move in. Guaranteed. And they are the best ambassadors for us. We have all these tree swallow boxes lined up along the trail. And what do tree swallows do? Well, the female or the male sits there at the hole with just its head sticking out, looking at people as they walk by. There's no other place in Grimsby where an 8-year-old can come by and say, look, wow. And they, you know, they're vocalizing and they fly around and they're just great ambassadors. And then we have a barn swallow nesting structure that was donated to us by Original Landscapes. We have barn swallows, tree swallows, and martins nesting on the property. There's another new ambassador for us. They started nesting when we put up the first martin house in 2018. That's it there. And it's been added to and accompanied with a new design of a purple martin structure. This one has 8 gourds on it. It's on an aluminum pole with a winch so you can lower and raise it. And we now have 7 of these in the Grimsby area. So we call it the South Shore of Lake Ontario Purple Martin Nesting Trail. You know, bluebirds can't have their own nesting, you know, be the only ones with a nesting trail. So we have 3 in municipal parks in the town of Grimsby, 2 at the Wetlands, 1 at 50 Point now, and 1 at the Salt Fleet Conservation Area. And each one but one had martins nesting in it in the first year. We put one up at Whitaker Park in Grimsby last spring, and by June, the 8 gourds were full of martins. Well, they had a nesting pair in each gourd. And martins seem to prefer gourds over the traditional martin box. The gourds last a lot longer and require less maintenance. So that's half of the town council out when we put up our first purple martin nesting structure in the town of Grimsby. There was a little novelty to it. And there's the delight of our work. On the left is a fresh purple martin right out of its eggs. The other eggs are just waiting to hatch. And the black on the right, I touched that again, I think, Rob. Don't do that again. Those are about a week, 10 days old purple martins. That black plastic tray Lori's holding is from a traditional martin house. Notice for the birders in the group, the nest structure in the gourd and in the traditional martin house, the broken leaves of narrow leaf cattail is the base of the nest. And then where they lay the eggs, they make this lovely little dish of green leaves. And as you can see that very well on the left. And that's a traditional way you would expect a martin nest to look. And it's as if they all got the same memo. Okay, this year, this is the style we're wearing, ladies. And then a new resident in the last couple of years at the Wetlands, muskrat. Muskrats are marsh builders. As beavers are pond beavers, tremendously important to water ecosystems, so is the lowly muskrat. There's a muskrat house, AKA goose nest platform. So what did we do with our old boats? Well, we're not taking them out. I don't have a big enough crane. We've disguised them with cedar rails. They're now permanent islands in the ponds. And we don't have to put cattails on them anymore. The geese and the muskrats cover them with enough stuff. They're beginning to look natural. But muskrat houses, they start building them in the fall because they have a bit of a timeline or lifespan. Muskrat houses are built with aquatic plants. Aquatic plants rot and blow away. So they build them in the fall, and the idea is just before frost, freezing of winter, the house will be finished. And that way the damn house will be frozen for 3 months and it won't rot. Because come the next summer, that muskrat house will be 4 inches high. Totally useless to a muskrat, because cattails, once they're up in the air and moist, they rot away. But the ducks love them and the geese love them. So that's what Watchers Pond looked like before we got involved. It was known as a shallow wetland that quite often would get very shallow in the fall, great for shorebirds, because they'd come and feed for invertebrates in the shallow waters or mud. And lesser yellowlegs is one of the most common shorebirds that we see come in starting in July, and they hang around all fall. But things change unpredictably. And so in the summer of 2020, 30 days of heat. Watchers Pond disappeared. And that, right there, is one of those boats. Doesn't look very pretty there, sitting in the middle of a desert. And that's the bottom of Watchers Pond. That's fall. The cracks were 6 inches deep. The lagoons were lined with clay so that they could hold water. And those young stalks growing up are cattails. So it was a wonderful place to be at the time to say, well, what's going to happen here? What's going to move in? Cattails, Phragmites, willows. Well, that's the next spring. From the winter snows and rains, we had some water in the pond. And the cattails started to come up. Looked like somebody had planted wild rice. That's later in the summer. And that's 2 years later. There are cattails 11 feet high. And then things changed again. So there's the summer, there's Watchers Pond, and it's almost solid cattails. And I remember speaking to Bob Curry and say, Bob, we've got this field of cattails. It's very, very lush. He says, yeah, but where are the birds? He says, well, they're in there, but we can't see them. We should figure out how to put channels through the marsh. Well, that's going to take a lot of thinking, Bob, and we don't have that money. So there's a picture, aerial photo of Watchers Pond, winter 23-24. We didn't know what was coming down the road. And the circles, here, the donut, here, 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 and the other places, those are muskrat houses. And the muskrats have eaten the cattails from around their house to build their house with. So we had about 11 muskrat houses in the pond. We thought, well, that was a neat way of counting muskrats. And then within a year, the cattails, 50% of them are gone. Great for birding. All kinds of diversity in the pond. And the water levels had, as you can appreciate, had come up. We got 2.5 feet of water in the pond. And what was it? Was it the higher water that was eliminating the cattails, or was it the hungry muskrats, or something else? And there we are today, summer of 2025. The cattails are almost all gone. Phragmites is not doing very well. That's the plus. And the muskrat houses, instead of going from 11 to last winter, the winter before, we had about over 20. We have less than 10 this year. And the cattail stalks that you see here, dead on the water, those are from 2023. So they take a little while to rot when they're in the water. So there's a tremendous amount of biological activity going on in the water. And the green stuff, that's really neat. That's duckweed, the world's smallest plant, and what a perfectly named plant, because ducks love it. And so do a lot of other animals, because in that soup is a lot of animal life for birds to eat, like the Virginia rails, the soras that we enjoy seeing. Where else can you go and say, I'm going to go down and see Virginia rails today? We're at the Grimsby Wetlands, June and July, you're going to go down and see Virginia rails. And they're the young ones. And if they don't look like little dinosaurs, I don't know what does. The D&D pond, I call it tomorrow's pond. Don't ask me which tomorrow, please. But in the meantime, it is ringed with Phragmites. Wild parsnip, which we'll speak about, is there and doing well. And but it's 9 acres of water, shallow water on the shore of Lake Ontario. So it's part of the attraction for the birds and the wildlife. It's really neat to see a coyote going out to one of the islands, swimming out to check the swan nest. Moot swan, so it's okay. And there's the fence separating the world from tomorrow's pond. In 2000, it was a regular cattle fence. But after we finished negotiation, they put up the wall. We don't want people in there, Bruce. And this year, again, another hot, dry summer, there's the D&D pond. It's the first time we've seen it half empty of water. So what will next year bring? Will cattails move in? Or will the water come back this winter? There's always something changing. And I talked about the committee at the beginning of the talk that put this proposal together. And it wasn't going anywhere. The phones weren't being answered. The letters weren't being returned. So I said to my friend, Wayne Furtick, he's the gentleman in the white shirt. He was a counselor at that time in the Grimsby Town Council. I said, Wayne, no one's answering. No one's returning my call. They're hoping I die, I think. But I'm still a young man. And he says, well, let's see what we can do. So emails and phone calls started to be returned. And the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority became involved. We knew a person who worked on there. And they thought it was a great idea. And so this summer, thanks to funding from the Rotary Club of Grimsby, we put Wayne's name on the observation tower and recognizing his work in getting the Grimsby Wetlands property set aside. If it was not for Wayne, we wouldn't be talking about it tonight. Wayne also knew a few people in Ottawa, so I have to thank Tony Valeri. Some of you may remember that name. And Chris Murray, who presently works for the city of Hamilton. Chris worked for Mr. Valeri. And Ottawa got involved with the D&D. And D&D were told, you have to meet with these people. They're nice people and they're citizens and they have a friendly idea. That was the only time friendly, that word, was used in any conversation. And I should probably leave it at that as to how negotiations went for 5 years. But the community won in the end. So thanks, Wayne. And we've adapted the observation tower. It now houses a MODIS wildlife tracking system receiving tower. I won't go into how all that works tonight, but if you Google MODIS, it's a project of Birds Canada, you'll find out all about it. I think my son has spoken to this crowd before. He manages the MODIS system. There could be a reason why the MODIS tower is there in Grimsby. And it adds to the attraction to the public. So one success story that I'd like to speak about tonight as well is the success we had with Phragmites control. When we got permission to come onto the property in 2017, when the trail opened, the first thing we saw was this wall of Phragmites. And I thought, wow, if we're going to do something here, if we don't get rid of the Phragmites or turn the volume down, no matter what we do, Phragmites is going to win. And I mentioned Lois Evans earlier about a significant grant funding she provided. And we spoke to a consultant and a contractor, and in 2017, 18, and in the fall of 2018, we came in and sprayed the Phragmites. And it outlined every pond. This area here, that's solid Phragmites. This is all Phragmites here. And it ringed the ponds. If you want to know what it looked like in 2018, go and look at the tomorrow's pond today, and you'll see. There's the machine the company used to as a vehicle to get into the Phragmites. That machine stands about 11 feet high, and that's the Phragmites beside it. And in the background, this is Watcher's Pond, 2018. There's the operator standing on top of the machine. So you get an idea of how tall the Phragmites is and how thick it is. And in total, over 2 acres of Phragmites was sprayed. All the hay-colored area or wheat-colored area, this, and around this pond, and around Watcher's Pond was sprayed for Phragmites. And these areas here were sprayed for Phragmites. That was in August, and then in October, fortunately we had a dry fall that year. We came in and we mowed it all down with an industrial mower. So the Phragmites could lie down on the ground, get wet, hopefully rot faster, and allow sunlight to hit the soil to give other plants a chance to move in. So there's the mower, and you can see the height of the Phragmites around the mower. And then we came back in this following spring in places and mulched that debris to get it to break down more. And then the following spring, this is part of Stollard's Pond. This was Phragmites the year before. And we had Virginia rails nesting in that area the next spring. So that said, you're doing the right thing, carry on. We got quite fortunate with the people we spoke to, the advice we got, and how the work was done. And we had the cooperation of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. We had to get them involved administratively so that we could legally do this work on that property. So we had the Conservation Authority, the region, to give us permission. And there's Stollard's Pond. It ranges from a pond that size to about 2 acres, depending on water level. Now, the important thing to note about these ponds is that all the water they receive is by rain. There's no overland flow. So these are the biggest rain gauges you're ever going to see. Actually, it's a combination rain gauge, evaporation gauge. If you get those hot, dry summers, you can have a dry pond. Fortunately, the only pond that's dried up to date is Watcher's Pond. And then we've also been pretty successful eliminating wild parsnip from the property. Wow, were we ever lucky. We were the first property probably in Niagara to have wild parsnip. Wild parsnip is a toxic plant. And it makes poison ivy look like a picnic. And so it moved in on the property, just like cutleaf teasel. But this is the one we worry about. And it's not easy to control because the seeds have a dormancy period of up to 5 years. I swear it's 15. So we have brought in a contractor every spring, and the region has paid for this very nicely as the property owner to help to spray wild parsnip. There's the leaf of wild parsnip. It's quite feathery, and the flower it's a lovely yellow bloom in the parsnip family. It blooms before the goldenrod does, so when it is in flower, it's not that hard to find. So we spray it in May, and then in the summer we go and eradicate the plants that we missed in May. And then our front field, I think the largest pollinator garden in Grimsby, is quite prominent, very important to insects. And then our legacy project. We call it the legacy project because we feel there's a legacy on the property from the Big R family who started to farm this property in 1798. And when we got to this property, the ground cover underneath those big pine trees in the middle of the property was solid buckthorn, 5 meters high, 15, 18 feet high. And it really was a wall in many ways, a wall of green, but a wall of, how are you going to start, Bruce? Anyways, this gentleman we met was looking for something to do. A year and a half later, he had cut down all the buckthorn on the property. Because the buckthorn and the honeysuckle were dominating. Nothing else was growing except these young ash trees underneath the pine trees. And buckthorn puts a chemical in the soil which inhibits other plants. So it's a long story, a very interesting one. And after our friend Ken Beeman cut down all the buckthorn, and you can see here flagging tape on stumps. There and there, there. These are not cardinal flowers. We brought in a small excavator and we dug out all the stumps. That was one part, that's the beginning of the story. Now we've disturbed the soil, we've let sunlight in, and guess what likes to germinate? All these buckthorn seeds that have been lying in the soil for God knows how long. So we're looking after that too, thanks to work of volunteers. And so we've ripped out all of the buckthorn stumps, because if you don't, the buckthorn stumps sucker and become new buckthorn bushes, and you've wasted all your time cutting them down. We didn't use chemicals to treat the buckthorn. So today, in our legacy project, we're introducing wildflowers. Thank you, Janet Snaith, for the contribution of them. And Sharon Porter. We've got some, on the left is a small wildflower garden surrounded by 1/4-inch hardware cloth to keep the mice and rabbits out. And the photo on the right is what we want to end up with, the next generation of white pine trees. Because these white pine trees that are on the property now, they're well over a century old. They have left no prodigy. So we're planting young white pines in there. And if anybody likes to hunt cottontail rabbits, please visit. When did cottontail rabbits take a liking to white pine bark? Okay, give me a break. And then to accommodate people to visit the Legacy Project, we put out a welcome mat. We're almost done, folks. And here's an aerial view of our 4 created wetlands or water bodies. Stollard's Pond on the left. We call this Pipium's Pond right now. It's Latin for leopard frog genus. Small pond here, which dries out in the summer, great for toad breeding. We call it Toad's Hollow. Sorry, is it J.J. Mellon? A? Wrong book? Wrong book, okay. The sign will be right. I have an editor. We got a grant from the Niagara Community Foundation to create a deep spot in this pond here so that it can hold on to aquatic life, invertebrates all year round. And our 4th wetland over here, if you don't go in it, you'll never know it's wet, but it's wet in the spring. And there is the boardwalk going into the Legacy Project. So this is our center of concentration for the property. And I'd like to thank our photographers. People have been giving me photos for a long time now. I've been taking photos for a long time. Dina, who brings food for the bird study group, she's a great photographer. The red-winged blackbird is one of hers. And then we do something other naturalist clubs don't do. We rent birds. I have been accused of renting different species to get people to come to the Grimsby Wetlands. It wasn't cheap renting a cinnamon teal for 2 weeks, but it got us national press on CBC. It paid off. It's fine. This is a bird from Western North America, 3rd time seen in Wetlands. We got more press. 2023 was the Brownie Award. 2024 was the cinnamon teal. Thank you, Kathy Johnson, for this photograph. And then, because the cinnamon teal didn't come back, we had to have something just as good. So here's a family of least bitterns. Do you know how far a bird will drive to see a least bitterin? Has anybody in this room seen young least bitterin before last year? There you go. Oh, what, Matt? Okay. Matt's been all over North America. So we got, that was not an easy rent. I had to rent the parents, had to have 2 females in case the first nest failed. So anyways, for those people who don't know me, don't believe me, okay, when I talk about rent. So we had a successful nesting of least bitterin, 5 young. These are a very rare bird, the smallest bitterin, the smallest heron in the world.
Wait, Bruce, what was happening in the top left of that photo? Is it eating another bird?
Oh, there's a frog. Oh, right there. Well, frog leg. Remember duckweed? All these dead cattails? Frogs do very well in this pond. Green frogs and leopard frogs. And that's why we worked very hard to keep this pond from drying out. Because in 2020, when it was dry, probably all of the aquatic insects, the amphibians, got killed off. So when the water started to come back, okay, some aquatic insects would start to come back. There would be maybe some larvae that survived, maybe some eggs in the mud. But insects fortunately have wings. They would start to fly and lay their eggs in there. There certainly were no dragonfly larvae in the pond, no tadpoles in the pond in the fall of 2020. So everything has had to come back. And I think that we're just starting to see the edge of what can come back. Because aquatic insects, they're not all going to come back right away. There's no flag flying, say, come here, virgin water, you know, house for rent. But some things have come back very quickly. And if you've got a family of least bitterns, green herons, soras, Virginia rails, wood ducks, blue-winged teal using your pond, you know there's some vitality there. So thank you for that question, Jackson. And folks, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
So we're going to take, I've got a microphone, I can bring it around for any questions. So hold your hand like that.
Bruce, what did the D&D use your Tomorrow Pond for?
It was, the land was originally, is part of their safety zone for the rifle range. And so originally there was no pond there. The region, or the town of North Grimsby, back in the 60s, it would have been in the 60s, maybe early 70s, as they were completing the sewage lagoon project. They wanted another pond or lagoon as part of the sewage lagoon project. And they leased 9 acres, the municipality did, from the Department of National Defense for that pond. And at the time, the National Defense Department thought, well, this is pretty good. Now we got this wall of water as our boundary. So that reduces, you know, trespassing and interference from neighbors. So in the year 2000, the region said to the military, we no longer need the use of your 9 acres of land. And the military said, fine, put it back the way it was. So that's why there was this decommissioning process to remove the ponds. And that's when the Naturalist Club got involved and say, well, please don't do that. And we interfered in that process. One thing I didn't show on in the photos, originally where Stollard's Pond is and Pippion's Pond, there were 4 other lagoons, relatively small, square, very deep, and they were called aeration lagoons. So the sewage was pumped into number 1, and air was pumped through it for increased biological activity to break down the sewage. The water from pond number 1 flowed into number 2, 3, and 4, and those were all aeration ponds. And then from number 4, it flowed into Watcher's Pond, where natural processes, just time, plants, and sunlight and bacteria, broke down the sewage further. And then the Tomorrow's Pond was called the finishing pond, and just gave the water more time before it was released into Lake Ontario. And those ponds, the Tomorrow's Pond prior to 2000, it looked like a swimming hole. It was 5 feet deep or so, and the water was clear, full of aquatic plants. You'd never know that sewage was its source. And that's one of the things we ran into when we first started. I met one nice engineer. Nothing against engineers here, okay? Not a thing. And he said, Bruce, I like your idea, but it won't work. I said, why? He says, you realize all the water in here is in here because we pump it in. I said, yes, and that's why it's 5 feet deep. But I believe that when you stop pumping it in, there will still be water in these ponds because they were designed to hold water. Now, I'd been working at 50 Point for 24 years and had a bit of experience with ponds and water in these clay soils. You dig a hole and you get a pond. And fortunately, we turned out to be correct. is that these ponds hold water, except in extreme situations like when Watchers Pond dried out in 2020. There was a little leak in the dam, so we got that fixed.
Don't tell him.
No, shh. What dam? Any other questions?
I actually had a question for Lori.
Yeah.
Lori, could you perhaps share something that's been eye-opening for you through this whole process?
How amazing Bruce is.
No.
Comes up with these ideas and they come to fruition. Sure, I work hard at them, but it's all his ideas and I think it's incredible.
I thought you were going to say, Lori, about the time I almost didn't come home.
Stuck in the mud.
Stuck in the mud.
Hi, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Back again.
Yeah.
Isn't duckweed an invasive species?
No. It's a native species.
It's a native species.
Yes. Help me, Leslie.
It's native.
Thanks, Bill. Sorry, I didn't see you back there. Yes.
Because I know, I do a lot of fish habitat type work. And I guess it depends on the species of duckweed. It's like Phragmites. There's a natural Phragmites.
Yes.
Then you have Australis. So you want to get rid of one, but not the other. I'm just wondering if you looked at the duckweed to see which one you have.
Well, my ducks say it's pretty good. Just go a little bit further on duckweed. It's a very small plant, floats on the surface of the water, and like we've seen in Watchers Pond, it's just this green covering, helps keep the water cooler. And there's these little tiny roots that hang down about 1 centimeter from the leaves. And if you want to see a lot of life, put one of those little plants in the roots and a drop of water that it was in under a bisecting microscope. There's just so much protozoan in that layer, top centimeter of water because of the duckweed. And so when the ducks come along, duckweed itself is very nutritious, but so is the protozoan that the ducks are taking in with it. So as far as I know, that duckweed is native. It's interesting where it doesn't grow. You don't find it at 50 Point in the pond, but the beaver ponds at 50 Point can be full of it. So it's selective. I don't know what makes duckweed go where it does.
One project meant to get rid of the duckweed because it was such an effective cover that the other aquatic plants lower down
Got no sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see the problem with that. Usually a real good wind will solve that because it'll create openings depending on the type of water body.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thanks. I understand that the negotiation with D&D was less than friendly initially. And I wonder, for tomorrow's pond, will it be friendlier in light of all the positive community support that you've got?
Thanks very much for that question. I'm waiting for a politician to change hands before I go back and talk to the D&D. We've had a couple of small meetings in the early 2020s about Phragmites around their pond and wild parsnip, and they have sprayed once or twice for wild parsnip. And we were making some inroads when Bob Morrow, a former mayor of Hamilton, then became a Liberal MP for the neighboring riding. We got in touch with him, and then the military staff came out with a smile and met with us. And then Bob Morrow, because of concern about LRT funding, he quit. And everything went radio silent. So we don't have an MP at this time that this property is high on the list of priorities or in power. So that's why I call it tomorrow. The way we look at it now is that it's 9 acres of water body that's not going away. Some of the birds are quite happy with it, but the property hasn't reached its full potential until you get rid of the Phragmites, and that was one of the things I sort of alluded to with that picture of Stollard's Pond in 2019. When you got rid of the Phragmites, the other plants couldn't believe how fast they moved in. It was like they were on a springboard. The cattails just filled up as if they were waiting. Now, the roots might have been there already, I don't know, but it was incredibly quickly. And then the wildlife moved in. So it's in a holding account, let's say.
Over here first.
Yes.
Hi there. I'm very interested in having some metal signs for where I work. What was involved in the ones that you have at that site getting made?
Yeah, I use a company called F&M Signs in Stony Creek. I can give you their contact information. I send them the artwork, and they produce the sign. We use a product called aluminum panel. It's 2 layers of thin aluminum that a piece of plastic is sandwiched between, and so it doesn't rust. It's very light, and to the visitor, whether it's aluminum or metal or steel, it doesn't really matter. But that's what it's worked very well for us.
Any last questions?
Yes, miss.
I'm just wondering, they got rid of the lagoon. What do they do with their sewage now?
Oh, good question. Right at the front of the property on Winston Road is a small red brick building, and that's the pumping station. Because prior to 2000, the region of Niagara, bless their hearts, expanded the Baker Road sewage treatment plant in the east end of Grimsby. So the sewage that used to go into the Big R sewage lagoon up until about 1999 now flows or is pumped to the east end of town and this proper sewage treatment plant there.
So I guess I'll ask the last question. What are you excited about for 2026?
Rain. Lori and I talk about weather a lot more than we ever did. It's going to rain tonight. How much? You know, the weather warnings, 5 to 10 millimeters. Well, that can evaporate in 2 days, guys. Come on. So we rain, but to give you a more serious answer, Jackson, would be what's going to happen with Watchers Pond, because now the cattails have pretty well gone down. Will the cattails start to come back? Because even where the cattails were when the water was high, they've disappeared or diminished. And at tomorrow's pond, it was half empty late this fall. Will it come back, and will other vegetation come in other than Phragmites? And one thing where we got really lucky, I think, and showing a little bit of ignorance about Phragmites, is that in 2020, when Watchers Pond dried out, Phragmites did not move in, even though one side of it there was a good stand of Phragmites. Cattails moved in, and Phragmites has not. So we got lucky there. Again, new species, lack of knowledge. Every year we're observing something that's a little different, and then I'm working on a rental contract for a new bird.
Well, I think on behalf of everybody, I'm looking forward to seeing what bird you rent for 2026.
Okay.
Maybe we can take some bets as to what rarity it's going to be. But every time I go to the Grimsby Wetlands, there's something new about it. And that's just a testament to the hard work of Lori and yourself and the other volunteers in that area. So on behalf of the Hamilton Naturalists Club, everybody here, thank you for all that you've done for nature. Thank you for everything you've done at Grimsby Wetlands, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
books out on the table outside, donated by the Lake Bruce Harschnitz. So please grab a book and take it home. I'll have some really cool copies out there. Otherwise, we'll see you next week at the Birdside Group. Thanks for coming out, everybody.